Hello, I'm Paul Beckwith, and I'm going to talk all about Covidiots in this video. So, some people might include me in that category. For example, I'm walking down a residential street in the middle of the road, not looking what's behind me. So don't be a Covidiot and walk down the middle of the road to avoid, to say you're a meter, 2 meter distance from people, because a car may come up behind you and run you over. But see, in my case, I'm using my camera in not forward mode, but backwards mode, so I can film myself doing my rant video. So I can clearly see cars coming up behind me and move out of the way. So on this case, I'm not a Covidiot, but you could call me a Covidiot on the idea of the scarf infused with soap to kill the coronavirus. That is a very, very bad idea, as a few medical people have pointed out to me. Just Google inhaling soap. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I wasn't always the most angelic kid, far from it. I could tell you some stories you probably wouldn't believe, but one thing I do remember is getting my mouth washed out with soap. That was a big deal. That was a big thing back in the day. And little did I know that that was also a very bad idea. So don't wash your kids' mouths out with soap if they curse, which was the reason why I got it done to me. Because the problem is, soap, as I showed in some previous videos, it completely annihilates viruses because there's a lipid or fat coating on the outside of the virus. So the soap molecules are polar. One side loves water, hydrophilic, and the other side loves oils, hydrophobic. It's scared of water. It's got a phobia about water. So when you wash your hands with soap for 20 seconds, there's chemical reactions going on that annihilate the virus. The side that loves water goes to the water side. The side that loves oil goes to the virus. And because of the hydrogen molecules, or the hydrogen bonds rather, the water pulls those molecules away from the virus, just pulling the virus apart. So it's great for that. The problem is, we have a lot of those cells inside our throats going down into our tubes and lungs, and the soap won't discriminate. It won't just destroy the virus, it'll actually harm your cells. So stay away from that. Terrible idea, disastrous idea. So on that issue, I'm a Covidiot, but I just like to point out, a scarf by itself, if you get a really high thread count material, you can take a magnifying glass and look at different materials, and the finer the thread count, probably the better it is for the filtering, as long as you can get enough air to breathe. So don't use something that's too fine a thread count if it interrupts your breathing. So it wasn't a Covidiot on the scarf, but just on the idea of infusing it with soap, as was kindly pointed out to me in the comment sections of my video by some medical professionals. So not enough research went into that idea. But I did have a couple other ideas. Maybe they're not so Covidiot ideas. One of them is I bought a meter stick the other day, and I thought I could go around, if I carry this when I go for walks, if somebody comes too close to me, I can poke them or pretend that it's a sword, and slash them, right, to keep them away from me. And if this caught on in the city and everybody ended up having these meter sticks, then what you could do is you could basically have sword fights with other people. And as long as you, if you just touch the tips of somebody else's sword/meter stick, you'd know you were 2 meters away from them. And if they don't have a meter stick/sword and you touch them, they're at least 1 meter away. So that would be kind of a fun thing. You could call it COVID defense system or something. And then I thought, well, what's about 1 meter long that is common in everybody's house, because everybody can't go run out and buy a meter stick. I was hoping to get a wooden one, but mine is metal, so Maybe I could sharpen the end into the tip like a sword. But anyway, everybody can't run out and do that. So I looked around the house and I thought, aha, so brilliant idea. It's not a Covidiot idea. I have this umbrella. Okay, it's about a meter long. But not only that, it's a special type of umbrella. It's a defense shield. Okay, so it's one of these umbrellas that tapers over like this, and you put your head inside and it protects you. So now what I do when I'm walking out in the street, it happens to be snowing, so it provides shelter for me. But I just rested in front of me, and I think you can get the idea here as I walk along. I'm not going to get direct particles in the air from people. So if somebody sneezes or coughs, or if somebody doesn't stay the meter away, you know, I'm protected under my shield. So, you know, it'll definitely work. You won't look like an idiot if it's raining. You know, you might if it's snowing like it is right now. But the key thing is you know, a couple people have already told me as I've been walking by, brilliant idea, right? You can walk out in public and it keeps all of the, you know, I mean, there's stuff is going to come up and underneath, right? But then there's turbulence and there's a lot of mixing and stuff. So my hope is that, you know, if I'm out in public, if there's some of the virus circulating in the air, you know, I'll get small dosages of it underneath the umbrella, but it'll help me build up my immunity to the virus. And, you know, other people, it might catch on. Other people might do this sort of thing. There's nobody around me right now. You know, air transmission is a concern. I mean, they say the stupid critter can live in the air for up to 3 hours or something. So I don't know. But if you're outside, it's going to be very, very diffuse. If you see any information on thresholds of virus particles, you know, required to get an infection, let me know. I've been trying to research this and I haven't come across anything significant. I know that there's probably a threshold effect dependent on a person's immune system. And if you exceed that threshold, you can come down and get the infection and get sick. And one of the things that seems to lend credence to that idea is that there's a couple cases where somebody is tested and they're negative, they're tested again, they're positive, they're tested again, they're negative. They seem to be on the threshold of the limits of that test. You know, they may have a very, very low dosage of the virus, but you know, it's right on the borderline between being tested and not. So, you know, it's not very common, but there are cases of that being reported both in China and elsewhere. And I also want to point out one thing. You know, please comment on it. And if you do comment on it, make sure you say your location and the dates. But as you know, I was in Madrid, Spain for COP25, the conference of parties, you know, the climate conference. Got to see Greta. You know, you remember that? It wasn't that long ago. Seems like an awful long time ago, but it was only months ago. And I don't know if you followed my videos then, you also know that I got extremely sick the first week in Madrid. So I was sick from about November 29th to about December 4th or 5th. And then, you know, I went to the conference. I started to feel better. But you know, not to get too personal here, but, you know, this was it was a very strange sickness. It was all, you know, I thought, is this the flu or what? But, you know, first thing, I had no appetite whatsoever. And I thought that was just Spanish food at first, but got some, you know, Canadianized, Americanized food and still, you know, had no interest in eating. So, and they call this, doctors, the medical community calls this anorexia. You know, it's actually just lack of appetite as opposed to anorexia nervosa, which you probably heard. So that was one symptom, but the other symptom was just gastrointestinal trouble, you know, and without going into too many details, I had to make a couple trips to stores to replenish my supply of underwear. So, you know, that may be getting too personal, but that's basically what the thing was with the disease. It was, you probably heard the expression "shart," but anyway, I don't need to go into the details. It was just horrible, about the worst in my life from what I remember. So I had that, and then Alfonso, he was sick for a little bit. I was staying, at his place. He was sick for a little bit, but very mild. And Charles and Heidi, they both got a bit sick. And, then I was wondering, at the time I was joking and saying, I got the Spanish flu, Spanish influenza, Spanish lady, it's also called that, right? The 1918 type thing. So I was joking about that. And I didn't go to the hospital or anything, but it was pretty severe. Now, in talking to other people, I know a lot of the normal flu's been going around, but this wasn't really a normal flu for me. So in talking to some other people, a friend in the UK, he and his whole family got sick and had similar symptoms. And one of the Italian doctors who's in the thick of the fight in Italy against the coronavirus was saying that patients would come in November and December of last year with these strange symptoms, similar to what I've described. And then there was a paper that I read that came out that talked about the fraction of people, pretty significant number of people have been reporting those symptoms, whereas those symptoms, that's not widespread knowledge right now. Most of the symptoms are dry cough and fever, right, which I didn't have. So just wondering if there were some strains of this thing going around back then. I'd like to get my antibodies tested to see if I'd built up some sort of immunity to this sort of thing. And, I'd like to get the coronavirus test just to see if there's any, maybe if I did have that illness, different strain back in Madrid in late November, early December, then that would really change the history of the knowledge of the disease when it started, not just in China, maybe different strains earlier. So I think it's a useful sort of thing to consider. Anyway, so if you were sick in November or December of last year, let us know in the comments section, and we'll try to let us know where, what country you're in, and when it happened, and we'll try to sort of see if we can glean any information from that. I'd really like to know if I did build, if it was a strain connected to coronavirus, because if I built up an immunity to it, then I'd be an invaluable person for volunteering, at local medical centers, getting some rapid training, because the medical systems are going to be overflowing soon, much beyond capacity in many countries. And if I've built up some sort of immunity already, I'd like to know that so that I can be an invaluable volunteer at such a place. But anyway, really strange times, so take care. And I'm going to talk about a very important paper. I talked about one about a week ago. Thomas Payer, or could have the name wrong, but it's called Coronavirus, Why You Must Act Now. And the latest one from him is Coronavirus, the Hammer and the Dance. And it's a very crucial paper for policymakers to know, so I'll do a video or two in front of my computer on that. I'm just giving you a heads up. The idea is we have to hammer the thing as early as possible, with the shutdowns, social isolation, everything. Throw the book at it, keep those in place for, a month or two, and then slowly ease them back. And basically what you're doing by all that isolation, you're lowering the R0, the number of people that catch it from another person. I think it's between 2 and 3, maybe 2.4. You lower that to below 1, the thing tapers off, and then you can start relaxing some things. And then when it goes above 1 and cases spread, then you bring in more controls, and eventually you build up a herd immunity to this thing. So anyway, thank you for listening, and I really emphasize that the next video coronavirus, the hammer and the dance will be very crucial information. Thanks.